Alright, today we're going to tie a bead head nymph, just a pheasant tail nymph. I'm going to use a number 12 straight shank eye down hook. I've already pre-mashed my barb. So the bead head is a size, give me 1 second to look at that up. It is a size 2.4 millimeter or 3/32 of an inch bead. When you put your bead on, it's got 2 size holes, one larger hole, one smaller hole. Always feed the smaller hole onto the hook first. So hook point into the small hole, feed that through, and that makes it so that the bead can't slip over the head. If you use too large of a bead, of course, it's going to slip over the head and interfere with tying in the future, tying it onto your leader, so you want to be careful. Get that connected in your vise. Give it a wiggle, make sure that the hook doesn't move in the vise. Try not to over tighten the vise. If you do, you will end up having a little bit of a problem in the future. You'll end up having to replace that part. You know, who wants to do that, right? So I start off by doing a basic jam knot, holding on to the tag end, bring it down about 3/4 of the way down the hook to about the barb. Snip off your tag end. Whoop. Gosh darn it, got to be careful though. You saw what just happened. I snipped my thread. So let's do that again. It was unintentional, but I guess that's a good way to show you what not to do. So again, let's be careful. This time I'll snip up just a little higher. Geez, my hands are shaky this morning. I'm going to bring this back right to the bend of the hook. Perfect. I've got 2 pheasant tail feathers that I've peeled off. Oh, actually, I guess I should put on my wire first. Where did that brass wire go? Oh my goodness, it has disappeared. Pause video for 1 second. Alright, found my wire. So we got the jam knot all the way down to the very bend of the hook, which is perfect. Need to bring that thread back just a little bit. Doesn't have to be perfect. So we take a little bit of the ultra wire from uni thread if you want. There's, you know, several different brands, whatever one you feel comfortable with. If you want to take a little piece of that, tie it in, put it on the top of the shank. As you work your way down, just try to keep it straight. Beautiful. To the bend of the hook. Pull this back and tuck it out of the way. Good stuff. Now we need a couple pheasant tail feathers. I don't think I like those ones. Let me find some nicer ones. A little more thickness to it because we got to put on a little bit of a... It's going to become the tail and the wing casing. So we'll take 2 pheasant tail feathers off your piece. Give it a quick trim to get rid of your curlicues. Beautiful. You want about the length of the hook shank for your tail, so just measure it up from there. Perfect. Give it a nice pinch. You want to do a nice pinch wrap here, nice and loose. Just 2 wraps. Bring that to the top. Make sure you've got enough sticking out. Not too bad. That's perfect. So we're just going to bring this forward, binding it down. You want to pretty much come right to the hook. You want to try to keep it straight as possible up and down because of course this is going to wrap back over and become your wing casing. So you want it to be over the very top of the shank, not the sides. If it's on the sides, it's not going to line up very well. So that is that. Super simple. We take a little bit of rabbit hair dubbing, bring that down. Keep it, oh, I gotta bring my thread back. I haven't tied one of these guys in a little while, so we'll bring that thread back towards the curve of the shank there, curve of the hook. Boom, boom, there we go. Got to add a little bit of dubbing onto our thread. Now you can use a little bit of wax to add onto your thread here to make the dubbing stick better. You can wet your fingers when you're adding it. So you take just a little tab of dubbing. This might even be a little much, but just give it a pull, stack it on top of itself. Do that several times. What you're doing is just lining up the fibers a little bit better, and makes it so that when you create your dubbing noodle, you can actually get it a little more consistent. So apply your dubbing, nice light twists. Keep in mind, when applying dubbing, less is more. You can always just keep on adding dubbing to your thread and wrapping. So you get a nice tight noodle right up high. You notice mine's nice and loose at the bottom. That's because as I keep wrapping, I'm going to keep adding that dubbing into my noodle, and then I'll take away any excess I need. Push your little noodle up to the top. It's nice tight wraps. Every wrap or two, give it a little twist again, just to tighten up that dubbing noodle, because of course as you're working your noodle around, it starts to want to unwrap. You're going to want to taper it from the tail, make it fatter as you work along towards the head of the fly, because of course you're creating its abdomen, and the abdomen's always a little thicker, right?
I forgot all about random
Stretch out dubbing a little more.
Yeah, it can't hurt to try.
And like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. If it's perfect, it's going to take a couple extra fish to make it more effective. All right, we're coming along pretty good here. I could make my dubbing noodle a little bit tighter, but I like that slightly loose dubbing that just seems to add a little more bulk, a little more fuzziness to the body, which makes the fly a little more imperfect. And like I've said before, sometimes I find that the less perfect the fly is, the more effective it is when using it. That's starting to look really good, isn't it, guys? Pull off our extra dubbing. I don't mind a few loose hairs sticking out, not too bad though. Give that a couple wraps just to tie that dubbing down. Perfect. We want to bring this back now, your thread, to about 2/3 of the way. You can see right here where I've got my thread, not quite to the point of my hook, but just a little bit back. Maybe one more wrap back. There we go. And we take our wire. Typically your gold wire, you only need maybe 6 inches of it. It's actually, I use my different scissors. It's, you'll end up with extra. You can usually get 2 or 3 flies from about 6 inches of the wire wrap. So as you got the wire wrap, you want to wrap it around. You don't want to do touching turns. I got a little piece of something trapped there. Give me a second to get that out of there. There we go. You don't want to do touching turns. You want to do a nice kind of spiral wrap, but your first wrap put right near the tails. What happened here? Somehow my thread backed up, so I got to back this off and fix that. So let me get this corrected. Unwind from my wire. All right. There we go. That's better. Now it's sitting where it's supposed to be. So one wrap right at the base of the tail, and then just open spiral wraps around. If you find it's difficult to do it with your fingers, you can always use a set of hackle pliers to help you move this wire forward, but it's not super necessary. Get your wire brought forward. That added the segmentation. So now you just want to hold that up, do a couple of wraps over top, give it just a little tug to add some tension. If you want, once you've wrapped a couple times, wrap around the wire. You're going to reverse the direction doing that. Wrap around the wire again. That will reverse the direction again. Perfect. So that's all nice and tightened down. So we just do a little helicopter spin. Eventually, after enough spins, it will, you might want to hold your fly good and tight for that, it will snap off. You can also use your scissors. I'm done playing with helicopter spin, so there's the scissors done. That's that body done. So we've got our little wrap. It's not perfect, but like I said, a non-perfect fly is a buggy fly. You take your wing casing bits, your pheasant tail that's sticking out, bring it back, wrap it. Oops. Wrap it. Hey, why is that wanting to turn that way? Let's try that again. Wrap it down. She's tightened up. Perfect. Then we just bring that back forward. See if we can spread that a bit. Sorry. Bring your thread forward. Just about forgot. Right behind the bead head. Fold that over. You want to make sure you try to keep it as straight as possible. Do one loose wrap over top. That way you can test. Make sure you've lined things up nicely. This one's going to have a very, very thin wing casing. So next time I do this fly, I'm going to have to pick slightly better pheasant tail feathers. So 1, 2, 3 wraps. Give it a little tug. You saw when I gave it a tug. The pheasant tail stuck straight up. That's perfect. So rest your scissors right on the bead head and give that a trim. If you do that, it just trims it nicely. If you want, which I'm going to do this time, you do just a couple quick wraps at the bead head and then grab your finishing tool. Do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wraps. Let it go. Kaboom. Make sure it's nice and tight. Snip off your access. Then all that's left really is to add just a little dab of head cement. If you want to make the wing casing tougher, you could use a little bit of UV resin. I would suggest maybe a thin or a flex UV resin, and that can make your wing casing a little more durable. But I'm today just going to do a little dab of head cement. It's going to penetrate right into all that fiber there, and that will finish that fly. When you're done that, you got a choice. You can put your fly into a little piece of foam or something to let that head cement dry. You definitely don't want to disturb your fly too much. I'm going to leave this in the vise, but there's a basic pheasant tail nymph bead head. Certainly not perfect, but as I've said before, a little less perfect is a little more buggy, and they are very, very good at catching. I did do this fly just a little bit thin on the dubbing, but it's still going to work. It's not the perfect fly, but again, you know, perfect flies don't catch fish as often as a buggy fly, and buggy is imperfect. Have a great day, guys. That would be the pheasant tail bead head nymph.